Yesterday, a jury found TV and radio personality Dave Lee Travis guilty of one charge of indecent assault.
Well, the outcome means he's the latest high-profile celebrity to be convicted for an historic sex offence.
One of Britain's most successful DJs, Dave Lee Travis, ruled the airwaves on Radio 1 for 25 years. But his career was rocked in 2012 after detectives working with Operation U-Tree arrested him. Faced with 14 sexual offence charges, a jury later acquitted him of all but 2 counts. Outside the court, he described his experience as a trial by media. But the CPS retried him and added a new charge. Yesterday, a second jury found the 69-year-old guilty of groping a 22-year-old woman in 1995. After 12 acquittals, 1 conviction for indecent assault and 2 charges where the jury were unable to reach a verdict, on Friday, Dave Lee Travis will be sentenced.
With us now is Liz Dux, a specialist in physical and sexual abuse who's representing some of the victims of the Jimmy Savile case. And with her is behaviour psychologist Jo Hemmings. Welcome to you both.
Hi, good morning.
Liz, I'll come to you first. What has Dave Lee Travis actually been convicted of?
He has been convicted of 1 count of indecent assault. What that means is he has been convicted of indecently, deliberately touching someone in an intimate place.
Okay.
So if we look at the facts behind this, it took the jury 22 hours over 4 days, and they were unable to reach a verdict on the sexual assault charge. The Crown Court case cost around £3,000 a day, so the total cost for those 2 trials is about £100,000, and then the police charges as well. Bearing in mind that initially he was faced with 14 sexual offence charges, a jury acquitted him of all but those 2 counts. You look at the size and scale of this, and then we come down to that one important conviction, and you look at it and think, how much does this cost?
Indeed, but we can't look at things just in terms of cost, because what we have seen come out of Operation U-Tree is a huge growth in the number of people who now feel able to report sexual abuse, and particularly abuse that occurred when they were children. And that's hugely important because they now feel able to speak out, they now feel that they're going to be believed. And what's important about yesterday's conviction and the Harris conviction and the Clifford conviction is that people feel that for the first time it doesn't matter who you are giving evidence against, that celebrity does not overcome what actually happened to you. And what we have seen is that now the police are reinvestigating older abuse cases and those who may be a danger. And I'm not saying that Mr. Travis was convicted of anything to do with children, but particularly with Clifford and Harris, where those were children involved, that the police are reinvestigating and are now looking to protect people from paedophiles.
Dave Lee Travis said that this was a trial by media. Do you think there was an aspect of that?
I commend the jury for the fact that actually they weren't swayed by what had happened before. It's very, very easy to read a lot and be influenced by it. And clearly this jury were wholly independent, and the judge went to great lengths to explain that. There should not be pictures published which associate Travis with anyone else that may have been...
Well, I watched the news last night, and there was just a very sort of slow-motion film of him in the old days, you know, side by side with Jimmy Savile, and you look at that and think, you know, those 2 are poles apart, but by implication, by putting them side by side, it implies something else.
Yes, the verdict had already been delivered then, and what's important is that these are juries who we trust, who a judge is very, very clear about in his direction, that they must not be influenced by any other trials that have been taking place, that they must not be influenced by what's written in the media, and that is vital. And actually they're to be commended because they came back with 3 very different verdicts, which shows that they were considering each offence independently, going away and discussing and considering whether there was enough to convict beyond all reasonable doubt. That's a very high burden of proof.
This is another retrospective case. How easy is it to try people for stuff that happened such a long time ago?
Oh, it is very difficult, and you know, the difficulty is that a modern jury expects some sort of DNA evidence to exist, and of course in these types of cases there isn't. But what we've seen in the cases where convictions have been obtained is that we've had evidence from people who didn't know each other, from different parts of the country, who gave very similar evidence. But it is very difficult, and it is one person's word often against another.
I don't in any way, and it's very important that I stress it, in any way demean what might have happened or might not have happened in the past to people who we're going to be talking to today, and that there are certainly aspects that happen in your childhood that do have a serious impact on you for the rest of your life. But how do you differentiate between a cuddly uncle who put his hand on your knee and think, right, that's it, I'm going for him because I felt uncomfortable at the time? Won't our courts be absolutely flooded with cases from the 1970s and 1980s?
Well, they would. I mean, I would always say to a woman, you know, use your instinct. It's often very right. If it feels inappropriate, it often is inappropriate. If it happens continuously, if it happens again, you know, this is another marker. So I think, you know, we're going to talk about things that have happened to women, perhaps to men as well in the workplace, but within families. Within families is very difficult. You say the cuddly uncle, hand on knee. It's one of those things you've just got to put up with on Christmas. But there is a difference between the hand on the knee and the hand straying elsewhere. Instinct for women is usually, or intuition is very good when you know it is inappropriate.
And there are varying degrees, aren't there, of harassment? I mean,
Very
in the
much
workplace,
so.
there's emails that could say the wrong
Absolutely
kind of
right.
thing.
And the workplace, of course, is compounded by the fact we're nervous of possibly losing our jobs. So much less is said there, perhaps, than could have been said. And it's also knocked back as if it's banter. It was just having a bit of fun. You imagined it. I mean, you know, women fear speaking out in case they're made to look foolish because they've been told it's all in their own minds.
So when is the right time to talk to somebody about it then?
I think the key thing is that you do have to talk. I mean, the people that have that sort of residual trauma of childhood harassment or abuse are often people that haven't had the opportunity to discuss it. So I think if it's happening now or if it's happened in your life before, the really key thing is to discuss it, is to talk about it, because that almost liberates that feeling in a way. You need to share it with somebody at some point.
Okay. The important thing, and you mentioned this as well, is that it has given women and men, certainly watching these cases unfold, it has empowered them in a way.
Hugely. I mean, I can't underestimate that. And let me give you an example. The other day I spoke to a chap, and he said, oh, I've listened to all of this, and actually for the first time I need to talk about it. And I think I had a consensual sexual relationship with someone who was coaching me at football when I was 12. Well, he can't have given consent at 12. And so we then discussed the whole matter, and it was clear that this chap had groomed him, had befriended his family, had taken over when this chap had had teenage rows. And so for the first time, he was able to talk and actually realising, and he'd lived with the burden that he'd consented, but he now realised that actually he'd been sexually assaulted.
Well, that's exactly the sort of thing that we're talking about today, which is why you are both here with your expertise. As you said, we are sort of widening that debate, and and they're going to be here as part of a sexual harassment phone-in. So if you're a woman or a man who thinks they've been sexually harassed, or maybe there's someone in your life who touches you in a way that you don't like, then please get in touch.
You can call us in confidence on 08000 30 40 44. Calls are free from BT landlines, though some calls and some mobiles and other networks may charge. You can also email us at thismorning@itv.com, but you need to get in touch by 11:30 this morning, and you must be 18 or over.
Welcome back. We're taking your calls now on sexual harassment.
With us are Liz Dux, Head of Abuse at Slater & Gordon, who is currently representing many of Jimmy Savile's victims, and psychologist Joe Hemmings.
Welcome back.
We've had lots of calls, haven't we?
Some very distressing.
Let's go to Janet, who's on the phone. Hello, Janet.
Hi.
What made you call in?
I was sexually abused when I was 12, 13. and the perpetrator was never caught. So I've had to live my life dealing with this, and I'm now 48, got children and try to deal with it the best I can through my life. I've had no counselling, so is there anything or any help that I can get now? I feel I need it.
This is obviously something that's still having a huge impact on you.
It has affected my life, and I put it to the back of my mind as much as I can, but little things, I can't walk out on a night if there's no street lights. I don't like the dark. Very wary when I'm by myself.
Jo, what can
Well, it's interesting hearing your story, Janet, because obviously the impact all these years on is still affecting you, and the going out, the fear, perhaps because you now see people having justice that you didn't have or couldn't have back then with the person that wasn't caught. But as much as anything else, it's so important for Janet to get some counselling. It doesn't matter how many years after it is. Go and see your GP. Talk to a trusted friend. Speak to a family member. Just make sure that you get someone you can talk to. It doesn't matter how long after the event. You will feel better. You will feel better just for talking about it.
I do feel angry that, you know, people are getting justice now.
Yes.
After so many years on, and I can't find that justice. I can't close that book.
I totally understand that, and it must make you feel very frustrated when it makes other people feel reassured. What you need to know is to make sure you've got inner emotional peace. If you can't get the sort of criminal justice that you want, the actual emotional peace and putting it to rest is absolutely key for you. So I really do advise you to perhaps go and see your GP and get a counsellor or someone similar, or a therapist to talk it over with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
What I would also say is that it's obviously tragic in your case, Janet, that you can't identify your attacker. But for anyone out there who was sexually abused or attacked as a child, and the matter wasn't pursued to court, and they still know who that person is and that person is still alive, you can go back to the police and ask for an investigation to be reopened. And the police are doing that, and we are now seeing investigations reopened and abusers now being caught. So I would urge anyone who feels that they haven't had justice, that they know who their attacker is, to go back to the police.
And again, I sort of point out that we were discussing this earlier on, that sort of degree is that when do you report someone? Because you just imagine that the police and the courts... And the reason I say this is you came down, you sat down and you said you are amazed at how many people phoned up and said they were abused as children.
Yes.
I mean, this is a shocking wave of the time, and certainly it still continues today. Virtually everyone I speak to has a story. Yes. I have a story like that. Yes. We all have stories like that.
And how close it is to the surface.
But so
that
when do you...
stories,
if we all went to the police, they wouldn't be able to do anything else, because we all have those stories. Horribly, we all have those stories. What do you do? How do you decide whether you should?
That's a huge burden for an individual to bear, and in fact that shouldn't be someone's own personal decision. If they were sexually abused as a child and their attacker is still alive, and they have concerns that they may still be abusing other children, because sadly paedophiles often just can't stop, then they should go to the police, and it is not for them...
not to protect themselves, but to protect
someone
the fact
else.
that it may still be happening.
Exactly, and it is for the CPS and for the police to decide whether, you know, someone is prosecuted. An individual shouldn't bear that responsibility themselves.
Is Janet still on the line? Janet, is it that you want to talk to somebody, or do you think you would heal yourself if you could actually bring your abuser to justice?
I would like to bring the person to justice, because I do feel very angry about it, because it's affected my life. But because it happened so many years ago, I feel the person won't be alive. So if that's the case, then, you know, maybe a little bit of help. Or I know it's years down the line, but
No, but you need the
the
help,
scars,
definitely.
the scars are still there.
If we
Yeah.
can hear it, we can hear
I
it.
can
And
hear it in your
if it's
voice.
still affecting you to this degree, then it is something that you have to address. Otherwise, you know, you'll continue to live with that for the rest of your life, and you shouldn't be like that. So you should definitely talk to someone. What we'll do is if you stay there, our phone-in ladies will have a word with you.
And I'm happy to follow
And
up with Janet.
Joe, you have
Definitely.
a word as
I will
well.
speak to you after the show.
And any advice that we pass on, we'll put on our website as well. So if you're feeling exactly the same way watching this, then you'll know what to do and who to go and talk to. So thank you very much, Janet.
Thank you for calling.
Thank
It's
you.
really brave of you.
Thank you for being so brave to talk.
We have Jack next. Obviously, his name's been changed. I am a male who, in the past 3 months, has been harassed and touched inappropriate for all fellow workers to see. No one has made any comments or asked me if I was okay. They must think, just because I am male and not female, that it's not as serious. I've since left my job and feel much better for this, and I only hope that more men come out. It's not just women who are victims.
No,
how often does that happen?
It does happen much more than we think, but of course it's considered to be banter, it's a bit of a laugh, or lucky you. I mean, it's not taken seriously for men, and I've had clients who really have also had to leave their jobs, female bosses who won't leave them alone, and no one, even HR in a particular case, wouldn't take it seriously. So it happens to men. And unfortunately, when you're in a workplace situation, particularly it's done in front of your colleagues, because you don't even have someone you can share it with a bit of empathy. It's been done publicly, and it makes you look a buffoon. It makes him feel foolish and uncomfortable. And you know, now Jack's had to leave his job, which is really the very, very last thing that you want to happen under these sorts of circumstances.
What do you do?
Well, what you would say to anyone in these circumstances is, firstly, keep a note as it happens of what's happening, so that you've got some sort of corroborative evidence, even if you're emailing yourself, but immediately contact HR, raise a grievance, do it straight away. In Jack's circumstances, the time limits for actually pursuing any sort of employment tribunal case are very, very tight. It's only 3 months. I urge people to keep evidence, write things down, say to people, did you see that, you know, can you sign this? So that, and if HR don't take it seriously, confront them, you know, go in there and say, look, this has happened to me, why aren't you doing anything about it?
Are you allowed to put your phone down and video this, that sort of thing? Is that seen as being secretive, and that would never be admissible?
Well, I think if you started to do that, if you said, actually, I'm going to film, you know, I bet the conduct would stop immediately. But it is, you know, people fear for their jobs these days, and it is easier said than done. And so this is why, you know, you must raise a grievance with HR immediately.
All right, thank you both.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you very
we
much.
are going to go straight to a break.
Yes,
Thank
if you believe that you are the victim of sexual harassment and you need advice or support, there are organisations who can help, and they are on the website itv.com. And as Amanda says, here's your break.